So, I recently decided that my better half should experience the sci-fi classic Alien saga. And much like myself, her favorite of the bunch came to be the 1986 James Cameron's Aliens. Upon watching that, she asked if there are any video games based on this. So, it hit me. I remembered that I never really gave Aliens Colonial Marines a chance, and much like Alien 3 I suppose, not a lot of people like to talk about it. I remember the game being an utter mess. Graphical downgrades, dumbass AI that pretty much rendered the game unplayable in a number of scenarios, crashes, and the overall fact that the game was just not ready to be shipped in the state that it did. Much like something else recently. So a couple of years ago, some modders actually found a typo in one of the config files that led to the batshit crazy AI. After correcting that, there were reports of improved AI, and this is where my journey to possible self-torture would begin. After that, it was time to improve on the visual downgrades, for which I applied this guy's mod. And now it was time to put on my helmet and my marine armor, load up my pulse rifle and the trusty shotgun for those pesky close encounters, and set out for a bug hunt with low expectations. And low expectations are exactly what you need to get through this game, since the mod wizardry doesn't magically make the game into an infinitely superior title. If you dislike this game for its general gameplay and story, well, this is not going to change your opinion. The game starts off with a distress call from Corporal Hicks from the Aliens movie going over the disaster on LV-426 and requesting assistance on board the Sulaco. Enter Corporal Winters, who, along with his battalion, wakes up on the SS Sephora and gets briefed by Captain Cruz to catch up on the battalion already sent to SS Sulaco to retrieve its flight recorder. Why is the flight recorder necessary? Well, this is where the gap is supposed to get filled between Aliens and Alien 3. The SS Sulaco, for some reason, has appeared over LV-426, the planet from Aliens, after being briefly spotted hovering around the Fury 161, the planet from Alien 3, where Ripley is essentially pooped out of the ship. With this premise set and a mystery to solve as to why is this the case and how the hell is Corporal Hicks still alive, you are ordered to board the Sulaco and figure shit out. And of course a few words of encouragement are thrown your way.
Attention chicks and dicks of the USS Sephora!
Upon boarding the Sulaco and finding a portion of the team, you quickly come to discover the xenomorph infestation on board the ship, as you rescue one of the most inconsiderate characters to ever exist. I mean, this fucking guy.
What's this? Cornelia! Keith, wait!
Flat wreck is en route to the Sephora. We did it, guys!
Rhino team, move, move, move! Winner, move! Why?
This guy ends up killing a portion of the team that rescues him, and the recovered flight recorder is lost in the process. It's not like this character is established to be a hothead or the crazy one of the bunch that might even remotely suggest that he's gonna fuck this up. It doesn't add anything to the gameplay, and trust me, it doesn't add anything to the story either. Things only go further south as you run into Will and Yutani mercenaries along with xenomorphs as you make your way through the ship, until shortly after, your ragtag team of quote-unquote colorful characters make a risky escape to the planet LV-426 as both the SS Sulaco and the SS Sephora are blown to oblivion. And much like the movie, you are now stuck on the planet with little means of escape. Having watched Aliens recently, it certainly had that 80s Macho Man action movie reflex when it came to the Marines.
Have you ever been mistaken for a man?
No. Have you?
Oh, that's good. Ain't just too bad.
But that was balanced pretty well by the fact that the Xenos make these guys eat their words throughout the movie. However, any character you pick up from any part of the game story just feels disconnected from the situation that's taking place.
You wanted to leave him out here to die.
Well, what are you talking about?
There is a lot to be desired when it comes to any sort of character development in the entirety of the game's story. Take Hudson from the movie, for example. He starts off with the cool guy attitude.
Me and my squad of ultimate badasses will protect you.
Then he becomes the biggest chicken shit as things go bad.
What the fuck are we supposed to do? We're some real pretty shit now, man! You finished?
but towards the end he becomes more useful again and goes out fighting, redeeming himself in the process. None of this exists in the game, which is supposed to be sort of a carbon copy of what the movie was. So why not have a little more fun with it, or maybe just, I don't know, put more effort into writing your actual characters? The sheer dryness portrayed by the mediocre voice work and the stiff animations is undeniable. This is a part where a character finds out that they're infected by a xenomorph.
How long?
Hours, maybe a day.
I'm gonna throw up.
This is the part where she's actually dying.
Close your eyes.
You get that, Marine? You promised. Get everyone off the planet.
Hoorah to ashes fell.
And just take a look at Hicks.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
I mean, even Hicks, voiced by Michael Biehn himself, sounds like he really doesn't want to be a part of
Corporal
this.
Hicks from the USS Sulaco. I've been held under duress for months by Weyland-Yutani. He wanted information.
On the other hand, the thing which doesn't feel as disconnected are the environments. From Sulaco's hangar dock, where the battle with the alien queen took place, to the planet LV-426, where the aftermath of the disaster is well preserved in my opinion and provides enough of a fan service to put a smile on your face. And it's not just a revisit to these environments, but also some of the scenarios that the game makes you go through provide for a well enough realized atmosphere, as the surprisingly well put together score harkening back to the movie plays in the background. I particularly liked some of the Xeno Egg scenarios with the facehuggers, where you don't really know where the facehugger is going to pop out from, so you really have to be on your toes. Or the Xeno attack on Hadley's Hope, where you're shooting your way through what feels like a swarm of them in the corridors where the characters fought them in the movie. There is also the beloved "take my weapons away and make me feel vulnerable so I'm forced to stealth" section in one of these levels. But for every single time the game makes you feel like a badass, albeit void of any personality Marine, it keeps reminding you of how utterly broken it is. Xenos can still act like idiots. Human enemies barely flinch when they get shot. Xenos can appear in front of you and just stand still because the AI is not triggered to do anything. Not to mention the handful of crashes throughout the game. But the epitome of my frustration came from the companion AI. Although after this mod they are surprisingly effective in a number of scenarios, having genuinely saved my ass a couple of times, only to go completely brain dead in moments where they are needed to open a door or spit out the all-important dialogue to progress through the level. Instead, they would generally run back and forth like a headless chicken, get stuck on walls, and just stand in uncomfortable looking poses, to the point where I had to actually reinstall the entire game, and by some miracle I got through these sections, though your mileage may vary. It is hands down the overall presentation that takes a nosedive and reflects the troubled development of this game. Despite the excellent improvements made by the mods that introduce more dynamic shadows and an overall improved lighting system that decidedly makes the game look closer to its vertical slice showing at E3 2012, it still looks lacking. I mean, this is the same year where we got great looking games like BioShock Infinite, Battlefield 4, Metro Last Light, Crysis 3, and even Call of Duty decided to update its engine for, retrospectively, one of the weakest entries in the series. And speaking of Call of Duty, this game is a pretty standard fare corridor shooter. That's not to say that it's bad. In fact, I think it works quite well with shooting Xenos in claustrophobic spaces with the iconic pulse rifle. And along with the pulse rifle, you get a host of other weapons, such as shotgun, flamethrowers, SMG, and so on. You even get to customize your loadout to some degree, select various attachments by spending points you get by ranking up, which doesn't tend to make a world of difference, but it is there if you want to try it out. But there are only so many things that can be improved upon with a mod before you hit the wall with things that I've already mentioned. The opening portions of the game has you fighting against the all-evil Weyland-Yutani mercenaries, which might feel like padding to extend the gameplay on top of the fact that human enemies just plain out suck. But thankfully, for a large part of the game, you're up against Xenos, and you even get a variation from within those. You get your regular ones, you get your spitty kind, you get your explodey kind, and a couple of others. The combination of these, however, can sometimes lead to an unprecedented spike in difficulty, especially in the more open areas, where you can really notice that the game has not been designed around more open spaces. Corridors is where the gameplay fits much better, which you might find less of in the later portions of the game. And finally, there is the all-powerful, the most anticipated of all, the Xenomorph Queen. that you never really get to have a proper fight with. If there is one thing that you might look forward to is that big bad boss fight at the end. I mean, the movie is literally the boss of big bad boss fights. Instead, what you get is a wet fart of a fight, where you can't even damage the Queen with any of the weapons you have. It can only roam around a certain portion of the area before it hits an invisible wall, and you can watch it embarrassing itself over and over again. Remember that the AI is working perfectly fine here as intended. All you really have to do is just pull some switches without there being an ounce of tension involved and get the last cutscene. Now, even though the pacing is generally okayish and the tension sort of gets ramped up throughout the story, albeit delivered with an emotional intensity of a fucking doorknob, you never really get to have an all-you-can-kill buffet with the alien queen. Both in terms of gameplay and the story, the payoff is simply put, borderline insulting. In fact, I'd just say it's insulting, because after all the bugs and crashes with checkpoint restarts, Hicks' dead eyes, unlikable characters, the story just comes to a non-resolute close. And the only thing you come to realize is that you just went through an 8 to 9 hours of exercise in frustration, which still costs a fortune on Steam.